1. U.S. House rejects NASA budget cuts, what it means for space exploration. 2. House Democrats accuse NASA of illegal fund impoundment. 3. Congresswoman Valerie Foushee calls for action against proposed NASA science cuts. 1. U.S. House rejects NASA budget cuts, what it means for space exploration. Imagine a scenario where the future of space exploration hangs precariously in the balance, where ambitious plans to send humans to the Moon and Mars could be derailed by budget cuts. This was the reality facing NASA recently, as political leaders debated how much funding the agency truly needs to continue its groundbreaking work. On July 15, 2025, a pivotal moment unfolded when a U.S. House subcommittee rejected proposed reductions to NASA's budget, setting the stage for what promises to be an intense fiscal tug-of-war. But here's where it gets controversial. While some lawmakers argue that maintaining or even increasing NASA's funding is critical for national security and technological advancement, others question whether taxpayer dollars are being allocated wisely. The Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science, CJS, part of the larger House Appropriations Committee, voted 9-6 to advance legislation that preserves NASA's current funding level of $24.8 billion for fiscal year 2026. This decision directly counters the White House's proposal, which sought to slash the agency's budget by 24.3%, reducing it to just $18.8 billion annually through 2030. The subcommittee's vote represents more than just numbers. It underscores the growing tension between fiscal conservatism and the desire to maintain America's leadership in space exploration. During the nearly hour-long markup session, discussions weren't limited to NASA alone. Lawmakers also grappled with other contentious issues, such as proposed cuts to the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. These cuts, aimed at trimming federal spending, sparked heated debates about public safety and environmental protection. For instance, reducing NOAA's resources could hinder efforts to monitor climate change and predict severe weather events, issues that affect millions of Americans daily. Interestingly, the Senate Appropriations Committee has also weighed in on this debate, albeit indirectly. Last week, they began drafting their own version of the appropriations bill but paused due to disagreements over the location of a new FBI headquarters. While their final draft remains pending, early indications suggest that senators share the House's reluctance to cut NASA's budget. In fact, their version proposes a modest increase, bringing NASA's funding to $24.9 billion for the upcoming fiscal year starting October 1. This move highlights the bipartisan recognition of NASA's importance, though opinions diverge on exactly how much money is necessary. Representative Tom Cole, Republican Oklahoma, chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, emphasized the dual priorities driving the committee's decisions. We robustly support local law enforcement and their tireless efforts to protect our communities, he stated. At the same time, we recognize the need to fund NASA's vital role in advancing space exploration. By doing so, we're not only safeguarding American innovation but also countering threats like China's attempts to steal our cutting-edge technology. His remarks reflect a broader narrative linking space exploration to national security, a perspective likely to fuel further debate. So, what does this mean for NASA's various programs? Let's break it down. Under the House's proposed bill, funding for exploration activities, key initiatives focused on returning humans to the Moon and eventually reaching Mars, would rise significantly. The bill allocates $9.71 billion for these endeavors, surpassing both the current allocation of $7.7 billion and the previous administration's request of $8.3 billion. This boost signals strong congressional support for deep space missions, underscoring the belief that such projects inspire scientific progress and global prestige. However, not all areas within NASA escape unscathed. The House version calls for reduced spending on science programs, dropping from the current $7.3 billion to $6 billion. This contrasts sharply with the White House's drastic proposal to cut these funds by nearly half, leaving them at just $3.9 billion. Critics might argue that scaling back science funding risks stifling discoveries that benefit humanity, from understanding Earth's climate to exploring distant planets. Space operations, including those supporting life aboard the International Space Station, ISS, would remain stable under the House plan, receiving $4.15 billion, the same as the current level. Conversely, the White House had suggested slashing this figure to $3.1 billion, potentially limiting crewed missions and cargo deliveries to the ISS. Maintaining consistent funding ensures continuity in research and international collaboration, two pillars of the ISS program. Other notable allocations include $912.8 million for space technology development, down slightly from the current $1.1 billion but still far exceeding the President's requested $569 million. Similarly, safety, security, and mission services would retain their current funding of approximately $3 billion, avoiding the proposed reduction to $2.1 billion. Aeronautics research would see a decrease from $935 million to $775 million, though this remains higher than the $589 million initially requested. Altogether, the House CJS measure totals $76.82 billion for 2026, marking a nearly 3% decline from 2025 levels. While this overall reduction may appease fiscal hawks, questions linger about its long-term impact on agencies like NASA. Can the United States afford to scale back its investments in space exploration without jeopardizing its status as a global leader? Or does the real challenge lie in finding a balance between fiscal responsibility and visionary ambition? And this is the part most people miss. Behind every dollar allocated lies a web of competing interests, priorities, and ideologies. As the appropriations process moves forward, one thing is clear: decisions made today will shape the trajectory of American innovation for decades to come. So, where do you stand? Should NASA receive increased funding to push the boundaries of human knowledge, or should it operate within tighter constraints? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take. 2. House Democrats accuse NASA of illegal fund impoundment. In a dramatic turn of events, leading Democrats on the House Science Committee are pointing fingers at NASA's leadership, alleging illegal impoundment of funds and premature implementation of a budget proposal for fiscal year 2026, all before Congress has had a chance to weigh in. This development has sparked a heated debate, with many questioning the legality and ethics of NASA's actions. But here's where it gets even more controversial. Some are defending NASA, arguing that their actions are necessary to ensure the continuity of critical space programs. So, what's your take on this? Do you think NASA is in the wrong, or are they justified in their actions? Let's start a conversation and hear your thoughts. 3. Congresswoman Valerie Foushee calls for action against proposed NASA science cuts. Imagine waking up one day to discover that the United States is quietly stepping away from its historic role as a global leader in science and space exploration. That's precisely the warning Congresswoman Valerie Foushee and her colleagues are sounding as they rally against dramatic proposed budget cuts to NASA's Science Mission Directorate, a move that could fundamentally alter America's future in research, education, and national security. In a rare show of bipartisan unity, several members of Congress, led by Representative Valerie Foushee, submitted a forceful letter to NASA Acting Administrator Sean Duffy, objecting to a staggering 47% reduction in the Science Division's funding outlined in the President's fiscal year 2026 budget plan. The lawmakers didn't mince words. They see these cuts as a direct threat not only to American leadership in science and technology, but also to the safety, economic health, and educational prospects of the nation as a whole. Take space exploration, for example. Most people may not realize that technology developed for missions to Mars and beyond has led to breakthroughs in climate change research, global communications, and even medical devices here on Earth. Losing momentum now, Foushee and her colleagues argue, could mean closing doors to future innovations we can't even imagine yet. But here's where it gets controversial. The lawmakers point out that these cuts could undermine the pipeline of future scientists, engineers, and technology professionals, potentially shrinking the pool of STEM talent just when the country needs a skilled workforce more than ever. Consider someone excited to start a NASA internship only to find the program defunded, or a promising research project cut short before it can make a difference. These are the real human costs of such a budget rollback, and Foushee and her colleagues are sounding the alarm. The letter further warns that early implementation of these proposed cuts, before Congress has even debated and voted on them, would contradict fundamental principles of legislative branch authority. In effect, they accuse the administration of attempting to bypass the constitutional power of the purse, which is strictly reserved for Congress. Think of it like a household budget. If your family hasn't discussed how much to spend on groceries, should one person get to suddenly slash your food budget in half without any debate? For Congress, the answer is a clear no, but the administration's approach raises questions about who should have the final say in federal spending, and when. And this is the part most people miss: these arguments aren't just about dollars and cents. They're about who gets to shape America's future and what kind of country we want to be. The full text of the lawmaker's letter is available on Representative Foushee's official website, offering further details for those who want to dig deeper. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider the bigger picture. If you're just starting to follow politics, you might wonder, does Congress really fight this hard for every agency's budget? Why is NASA's science funding so vital compared to other spending priorities? NASA's work, tracking asteroids, monitoring Earth's climate, and developing new technologies, serves not just lofty ideals, but also tangible national interests, from protecting our planet to inspiring millions to dream big in STEM careers. This is why the proposed budget cuts are stirring up such strong reactions on both sides of the aisle. So, what do you think? Should the US make room in its federal budget for other priorities at the expense of science and space exploration? Or does weakening NASA's science missions risk not just America's reputation, but the education and safety of future generations? Should Congress, not the executive branch, always have the final say on agency budgets? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, whether you agree, disagree, or have a different perspective entirely. A quick note: this summary is AI-generated and may contain minor inaccuracies. For the official, error-free version, consult Congresswoman Foushee's full press release on her website. Meanwhile, for those interested in the financial side of politics, Quiver Quantitative estimates Valerie P. Foushee's net worth at $207,500 as of July 18, 2025, making her the 397th most affluent member of Congress by their live count. Notably, she currently holds no tracked investments in publicly traded assets, according to available records from Quiver Quantitative. You can follow her financial disclosures on their dedicated politician page. On the legislative front, Congresswoman Foushee has been active in proposing new bills, including the Cool Roof Rebate Act of 2025, H.R.2679, the Impact Act 2.0, H.R.2122, and the College Thriving Act, H.R.1409. These bills reflect her focus on climate, technology, and education, themes closely connected to her concerns about NASA's future. Track her latest legislative efforts and their status on Quiver Quantitative. In terms of campaign finances, Foushee's Q2 2025 FEC report shows $64,800 in fundraising, ranking her 688th among all politicians for the quarter, with just under half coming from individual donors. Her team spent $55,000, placing her 674th in this category, and she ended the filing period with $95,900 cash on hand, ranked 802nd among her peers. For those curious about the details, the full disclosure is publicly available, and Quiver Quantitative tracks her fundraising and donor data as well. In summary, the fight over NASA's science budget is about more than politics, it's about the soul of American innovation. Whether you're a policymaker, a scientist, a student, or an everyday voter, these decisions could shape the trajectory of the United States for decades to come.